Tonight on Reporting Scotland, a scathing verdict on Tony Blair's decision to go to war in Iraq. The Chilcot report says the justification was flawed, preparations were hasty, and Iraq is still suffering the consequences. 19 of those who died in the conflict were Scots. For their families, the loss is still keenly felt.
Alan didn't want to go to Iraq. He joined the army, he knew he'd have to go somewhere, but he wanted a career. And, like Sir Blair, ended it.
We'll have political reaction to the report, and we'll be assessing what happens now. Also in the programme. Rachel and Naomi Fee are jailed for life for murdering Rachel's 2-year-old son Liam and subjecting him to years of abuse and neglect. A UK minister casts doubt on whether Scotland can remain in the EU when Britain leaves. Nicola Sturgeon says it's too early to say. And so far, so good. Andy Murray makes a battling start as he bids for a place in the Wimbledon semi-finals. Good evening. The First Minister says the Iraq inquiry report is damning of former Prime Minister Tony Blair. Nicola Sturgeon said that while she couldn't be sure whether Mr Blair knowingly misled Parliament, MPs didn't have all the information needed to make such a massive decision. Sir John Chilcot's report raised questions about the necessity of the conflict as well as the strength of the intelligence and legal advice with which it was justified. Well, in a moment, we'll hear from people whose lives were changed by the Iraq War. But first to Westminster, where our correspondent David Porter has been following the day's events. David.
Jackie, tonight here at Westminster, the full implications of the Chilcot report are being digested. This is the executive summary. It alone runs to 140 pages. Earlier, Sir John announced to the world media, to politicians and to the families of those who had died in Iraq the full contents of his report. It runs to 2.5 million pages and has something like 250,000 chapters. It will become, perhaps in effect, the ultimate narrative of what happened before, during and after the Iraq conflict. A place to reflect and to contemplate. In the shadow of Westminster, this site will soon become a permanent memorial to those who died in the Iraq War. Of course, nothing can compare to the loss of bereaved relatives, but British politics too has been scarred by that conflict. And today, an attempt to finally answer the myriad of questions.
We have concluded that the UK chose to join the invasion of Iraq before the peaceful options for disarmament had been exhausted. Military action at that time was not a last resort.
13 years on, Iraq still raises raw emotions, none more so than from the families of those who died.
What we've heard and what we've been reading has been really hard, and I think that's why there's a lot of mothers and fathers that's been in tears today. A lot have held it back for weeks, and what's been confirmed today is really gut-wrenched a lot of us.
Mr. Alex Salmond.
In the Commons, tough questions.
Amid all this stuff about improving processes, which is fantastically important, and I acknowledge it, is it not at the end of the day people that make decisions? And in our search for responsibility, wouldn't it help if individuals responsible were held accountable?
Yeah. He's right that the people who took those decisions should be held accountable in this House, held accountable in the Court of Public Opinion. They're also accountable in terms of people who might want to take action, as people have through the courts with respect to equipment failures and the rest of it in Iraq and Afghanistan. But clearly the government of the day and the Prime Minister of the day have to account for themselves, and I understand that Mr Blair is doing that right now.
He defended his actions.
I did not mislead this country. I made the decision in good faith on the information I had at the time.
But back in 2003, plenty opposed military action.
Iraq probably has no weapons of mass destruction in the commonly understood sense of the term.
And amid the mass protests, the then Liberal Democrat leader Charles Kennedy also set his face against military action.
This is the riskiest moment for Britain since Suez.
Well, this report is a vindication of Charles Kennedy and, of course, of Robin Cook, who resigned from Tony Blair's cabinet because he did not agree with the proposal to go to. Unhappily, neither of them are here.
The initial war in Iraq was brief, with overwhelming force being used against Saddam Hussein. Soon, like his statue, his regime was toppled, but winning the peace proved far more difficult and cost Scottish lives. Next week, MPs will get 2 days to debate the Chilcot report. They say lessons must be learned. David Porter, reporting Scotland, Westminster.
Well, as well as media and ministers, the findings in Sir John Chilcot's report will be read closely by those who served in the Iraq War, as well as their family and friends. 19 of those killed in the conflict were from Scotland. Today, their relatives described the report as gut-wrenching. Our reporter Kevin Keane has been to meet some of them.
They're the casualties of war, the 19 Scots who lost their lives in the desert, far from home, never knowing that their conflict would unwind so spectacularly. Corporal Gordon Gentle, watching over his mother Rose, one of the key campaigners. He was a 6'6" soldier killed by a roadside bomb.
The gentle giant, yeah. That's because even if any of the old neighbours were walking along with their bags up, and Gordon would take them off and he'd carry them along the road. All the neighbours loved them.
For Rose, the fight for justice has to go on.
It's something I feel I really need to do. I promised him I would do it, and I got him home and got him into June. It's something that was driving me. I need to push this, I need to push. I just felt that something wasn't right.
Of the dead, 1 in 10 were Scots, the families receiving that dreadful news, what they'd feared. Lance Corporal Alan Douglas from Aberdeen was shot on routine patrol in 2006.
Alan didn't want to go to Iraq. He joined the army, he knew he'd have to go somewhere, but he wanted a career. And, like Sir Blair, ended it very short.
Much focus is on the dead, but many thousands more were injured, bearing the scars to this day, physical and mental. Billy McClelland has battled with depression and alcohol, a product of post-traumatic stress disorder.
You're being sent over there to do a job, so as a soldier you go and do that job, but when you find out it could be through lies or not the full truth, you can get quite bitter and angry about that.
The inadequacy of the kit, the equipment, is also criticised by Chilcot. Lance Corporal Ian McMenemy was provided with the wrong uniform, jungle greens instead of sandy desert. What he's wearing here wasn't provided by the army, but by his wife in Falkirk.
Within days, she'd found the kit, sent it out to me, and the military post had found me behind some rock in Iraq. And I remember remarking at the time, she could do what the British government and the British Army couldn't do, and that was source kit and get it to me out in Iraq.
Perhaps the most poignant reminder of the Iraq conflict is in Glenrothes. As a post-war new town, it had no war dead. But when Mark Ferns and Scott McCardle were killed in 2004, that changed. This memorial forever a reminder of those and the other lives so tragically taken so far away. Kevin Keane, reporting Scotland.
Well, let's get some analysis from our political editor, Brian Taylor, who's at Holyrood. Brian, this report, this very weighty report, has answered some questions, but it's also asked many.
I think that's inevitably the case, Jackie. Let's try just a few. Will there now be political or even legal action against individuals, perhaps against Tony Blair? You heard Alex Salmond saying there that he believes Mr Blair is culpable, and that must certainly be examined. On behalf of the families, their lawyer Matthew Dury is saying yes, he will look at that, yes it is possible, but he wants time to consider in detail the contents of the report. Then secondly, the issue of lessons learned, the question of lessons learned. They have been identified, the need for coordination in government, the need to work closely with the intelligence services, the need to prepare and plan better. Those problems that have been identified, those questions have been asked, but will they be thoroughly absorbed into the political and military system? Mr Cameron says they already have been, in terms of a National Security Council being appointed by him in 2010 to coordinate efforts. But at the same time, he also says Britain must not lose its strategic objective of working closely with the US, must not lose its strategic objective of, where necessary, intervening globally with military force. In those circumstances, one wonders, one poses the question, would that priority, those strategic priorities, again trump the questions raised by the Chilcot report? Just a final question, a hypothetical question. Tony Blair adamant he did not lie, he did not deceive. He says the report bears that out. But just consider that imagine he was still in office today, on this day, the day that the report was published. Do you imagine that he could have stayed in the tenure of Downing Street in the face of this compendious and coruscating report?
Brian Taylor, thank you very much. Well, still to come on tonight's Reporting Scotland, we find out about the 1,000-ton digger called Daisy, which has started boring a hole in Glasgow to improve the city's water.
And in sports, Andy Murray is eyeing the Wimbledon semi-finals. How's he doing? Don't go anywhere. We'll cross to the All England Club to bring you the very latest.
A mother and her civil partner have been jailed for life for the murder of her 2-year-old son, Liam Fee. Rachel and Naomi Fee were sentenced to a minimum of 23.5 years and 24 years, respectively. Lisa Summers reports.
Behind Liam Fee's short life, a story of horrific cruelty. As Rachel and Naomi Fee were sentenced, Lord Burns was clear about the scale of violence against him from the very people who should have loved him.
You grossly abused those responsibilities and subjected them to a cruel and pitiless regime of ill treatment and neglect.
Neither woman showed any emotion as the judge ordered them to serve 24 and 23.5 years before they can apply for parole.
You've done it, babes. You've done it.
But outside, Liam's father Joe was emotional, relieved. Rachel on the left and Naomi Fee subjected Liam to a sustained campaign of cruelty. The blow that killed him, so severe it ruptured his heart. He spent the last few days of his life with a broken leg and arm. It would have been agony. Instead of helping him, the couple Googled on their phone, can you die of a broken bone? Or can lesbians who are married go to jail together? And they abused 2 other boys mentally and physically, one they tried to blame for Liam's death.
It says friendship forever. And me and my partner, and they two got this.
Gillian McCusker believed she was one of Rachel and Naomi's closest friends.
Because they're still going to get everything paid for them. They're still going to get everyday life. And it's not fair because they're going to come out there whenever they come out and they're still going to have their own life to lead. And little Liam, where is he? Nowhere. He's not got a life. Still can't take it in. Sorry.
In the Fife community where Liam lived, reams of coloured ribbons make up a memorial wall in his name. A service will take place at the local church tonight.
Everybody's still in that bit of disbelief, they're still in shock, they're still thinking how we never sussed out why or how they did this to the child, how they did this to Liam.
Everybody knows him and everybody liked him, so everyone's pretty much shocked knowing what has happened at the end of it.
The village is trying to raise enough money to get a park bench in the park.
And why is that important?
So we can have a memory of Liam.
The community is moving on, but there are still unanswered questions. Why did Liam drop off the social work radar? Fife Council wouldn't comment while a significant case review is underway, but the local councillor says it must be thorough.
We want to know the answers and we want to know how something like this could be prevented in future so no other young boy like Liam Fee could suffer and not be protected in this way.
From the start, Rachel and Naomi Fee were in this together. The murder, the abuse, the cover-up. But after sentencing, they'll be taken to separate prisons. They'll spend the next 20 years of their life apart. Lisa Summers, Reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Talks have broken up in a bid to end the ScotRail dispute without any progress. The RMT union met Abellio ScotRail management for an hour in the row over plans to change staffing levels on new trains. The RMT is planning further strike action with a 48-hour stoppage due to start on Sunday. A 5-year-old girl has died after the car she was in was involved in a crash with another in Paisley yesterday. Nairi Johnson, who was from the Paisley area, was in the back seat of a Vauxhall Corsa with a 3-year-old boy when it collided with a BMW. The boy was uninjured, while the driver of the Corsa is in a stable condition in hospital. The Foreign Office Minister, David Liddingston, has cast doubt on the possibility of Scotland remaining in the EU when the UK leaves. But the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, has said it would be premature to rule out any options. Here's our political correspondent, Glenn Campbell.
If the UK's out, can Scotland stay in the EU?
Yes, we can.
The Scottish Government certainly seems to think so, but the UK's Minister for Europe is not so sure.
Mr Liddingston, is there a way that Scotland can remain in the EU if the UK as a whole is coming out?
Well, I think the legal position is very clear that you have to leave the EU. It is before you can apply to be a member, and the Spanish government's already made very clear that they don't see this as a prospect. I mean, I think the important thing today is that the Scottish Government works really closely with the UK Government, as Prime Minister Cameron has invited them to do, to get the very best possible deal for Scotland, for all its people, and for all the people of the UK in the forthcoming negotiation.
But to be clear, that will be a relationship with the EU outside of the EU.
Yes, I mean, that's what the people voted for.
He was speaking before meeting the Edinburgh Consular Corps, having already held talks with the Scottish Government.
The Europe Minister seems to be trying to close down the range of options that might allow Scotland to retain its relationship with the European Union. But the First Minister remains hopeful a special arrangement can be found.
For anybody at this stage to rule out those options before this process has properly got underway, I think is seriously premature. Now, I've also said that there will be serious challenges ahead for us in trying to achieve the outcome I want to see us achieve, which makes it all the more important that our minds are open at this stage to every possible option.
The First Minister met EU Consuls General on Tuesday, after which one was particularly outspoken.
Do you support independence for Scotland?
I have to stay impartial, but between me and you, I do.
You do. Thank you very much.
Today, his boss took a more diplomatic line on Scotland's future.
We are very much respectful for the decision of the people, the same in the UK and in Scotland, so it will depend very much on the people in Scotland.
The First Minister is keeping open the possibility of calling a second independence referendum if no other way can be found to keep Scotland's EU links. Glenn Campbell reporting, Scotland, Edinburgh.
I believe a tennis match is underway. Let's get sport now from Jane.
You might just be right, Jackie. Good evening to you. It's men's quarter-final day at Wimbledon, and already through to the semis are Roger Federer and Milan Raonic. Will second seed Andy Murray join them? He's in action right now against Joe Wilfried Tsonga, and as Chris McLaughlin has the story of the match so far.
The world #2 at the most British of tournaments, always a Scottish hero. Andy Murray certainly draws a crowd, some faces more famous than others. But would the Beckhams and centre court be heading home happy? Early on, they were certainly entertained.
Oh, there's the first one, and it's perfect. He's got an unbelievable lob.
Could this game mirror his mauling of Kyrgios, though? Well, Murray broke early, but Tsonga signalled his intent by breaking straight back. And following a blistering open set battle and a titanic tiebreak, Murray took first blood.
1 set to Murray.
After surviving his first set scare, the Scot settled into his stride and then some. Tsonga, still looking frustrated from his tie-break defeat, was simply dismantled in the second set. 6-1 in just 26 minutes, and Murray showing exactly why he's the favourite to take the title.
Well, let's cross live to the All England Club now and join our reporter Keridine Idsan. Keridine, that was some first set, wasn't it? Murray looking better though. If he gets through, let's be positive, who will he face in the semi-finals?
It's looking pretty good for Andy Murray, although a little bird tells me that he's just been broken in the third set. So Jo-Wilfried Tsonga is now 3-1 up in set 3, but Andy Murray, of course, has that cushion of a 2-set lead. If Murray is able to retrieve that in the third or win it in a fourth or a fifth, if he does go through, it's Thomas Berdych of the Czech Republic on Friday in the semi-finals. He is the world number 9, but the good news is Andy Murray hasn't lost to him since 2013, and he's won the last 4 times that they have played. So hopefully a good day for Andy Murray. It's looking good for him on centre court. Heartbreak for big brother Jamie though. He lost a 5-set doubles match. I think it was 10-8 in the 5th set. They won 16-14 yesterday. Today it was just a bit too much. They lost to a French pair, Beneteau and Roger Vasselin. So Jamie Murray, heartbreak for him. He's out of the doubles, but Andy Murray's looking good for a place in the semi-final of the singles on Friday.
Thank you, Keridine. Now, on the eve of golf's Scottish Open at Castle Stuart, one of the tournament's biggest stars says he might stop coming to it every year. 5-time major champion Phil Mickelson has been a regular at the event, winning it in 2013, but feels the policy of moving the tournament around the country isn't ideal preparation for the Open Championship. From Inverness, here's our golf reporter Phil Goodlads.
On the eve of the Scottish Open, we have the Pro-Am, mixing those who can play, those who want to play, and those who, well, want to make a fashion statement.
All right, finally, he hits the ball.
Phil Mickelson needs no introduction, but the former winner here may stop coming regularly as the Scottish Open continues to move around the country.
Could this be the last time we see you in the event?
I doubt it'll be the last time that I play, but I don't know if it'll be an every year occurrence. You know, after playing Castle Stuart 3 times, the 3rd time I was able to kind of learn the golf course, played effectively, ultimately won. It takes a while to really understand the nuances of a links course. There's so many of them.
Colin Montgomerie is also making plans for the future after recently qualifying for next week's Open Championship.
Relief more than anything, because I did realise that at my age, at 53, when the Open comes back to Troon in, say, 12 years' time, being 65, I won't be able to play, never mind qualify, because that's the age limit.
Many here are trying to combine winning with prepping for next week. Is that the same for you, Monty?
That's very good. You've answered your own question, really. I mean, so you know, if you'd like to come up here shortly, that's fine, and I'll sit there. Save me having to hold any 5-foot putts, you know.
And those 5-foot putts could make all the difference here this week, with over £500,000 on offer for the winner.
Finally to football, and Hearts put any fears of an early European exit to bed with a convincing 6-3 aggregate win over Infotets of Estonia, leading 2-1 from the first leg. Callum Patterson's header got the Tynecastle side off to a great start in Tallinn. Igor Rossi and Alim Ozturk added further goals before Rossi's effort in front of the travelling fans made sure Hearts progress to the second qualifying rounds. Oh, well done to them too. Football season's back.
Yes, hurrah. Thanks very much, Jane. Now, it's 1,000 tonnes and almost 600 feet long, and it's about to start boring a big hole big enough to take a double-decker bus under the streets of Glasgow. Why? Well, John McManus has been to see a digger named Daisy.
This is where it all begins. The launch chamber for Scottish Water's tunnel boring machine at Creighton, which will dig through 3.1 miles of Glasgow earth. The machine parts were previously lowered into place. It was christened today by 10-year-old Lewis Bennett and the Environment Secretary, with water, not champagne.
Daisy, the driller.
The machine starts turning soon. At 180 metres, it's been purpose-made, and now it has its own name too.
If it's a driller, then it starts with D, so I used alliteration, which I learned from school, so I thought the first girl's name that came into mind that began with a D, and it was Daisy.
The government says this project isn't just about what's below, it will also kickstart regeneration on the surface.
This is a huge project, one that will benefit many people when it's completed, especially in terms of alleviating flooding. Inevitably, though, there has been some disruption.
An infrastructure project this size it can't be done without a degree of disruption. I know that the people managing the project are trying to keep that to an absolute minimum.
If residents can hang on, work should be finished late next year. John McManus reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
To the weather now and over to Christopher.
Thank you very much indeed, Jackie. Good evening to you. This was the scene in Shetland this afternoon. For many, though, after a bright start, it turned out rather damp. And staying cloudy, damp and indeed breezy this evening and overnight, all courtesy of this weather system here working its way in off the Atlantic. So a further band of rain edging its way in now from the west and journeying east-northeastwards. The winds freshening from the west-southwest, strong around the northwest coast, perhaps touching gale force for a time. But the rain does clear through overnight, so actually drying up. And a mild night in store. Temperatures in towns and cities around 11 to 13 Celsius. So tomorrow morning, it's a dry, bright start for many. Still, though, the overnight rain lingering through Shetland. And then as we head through the course of the day, actually fairly decent conditions on offer. Probably the warmest day we'll see this week, with temperatures in the south 18 to 20 Celsius. Winds moderate at times, but in the sun it should feel decent. Towards the eastern parts of the country, Edinburgh northeastwards, 21, maybe 22 Celsius. 1 or 2 light showers around the north coast. The northwest corner, well, perhaps some showery outbreaks of rain here, similar to for the Northern Isles, and Shetland, well, a very different day for you, wet and windy. And then as we head through towards Thursday evening, showery outbreaks of rain across the Hebrides, edging in towards the west coast, perhaps affecting west central Scotland for a time too. Friday, and that system is pulling away, so a few showers behind it, but behind me, there it is, the weekend weather. Doesn't look good, does it? More on that in a second. Friday, yes, some showers around, some sunshine, probably not as good as tomorrow, but decent enough, and temperatures once again 90 to 21 Celsius. To the weekend, Saturday, wet and windy, gale force conditions at times, really not particularly pleasant at all. In fact, that looks, should I say it, a little bit autumnal. Jackie.
Christopher. Now a reminder of tonight's main news. The long-awaited Chilcot report has laid out a catalogue of failures in Britain's role in the Iraq War. The scathing verdict on the invasion in 2003 says the Iraq dictator Saddam Hussein posed no imminent threat and the military action against him was not a last resort. And a mother and her civil partner have been jailed for life for the murder of her 2-year-old son Liam Fee. Rachel and Naomi Fee were sentenced to a minimum of 23.5 years and 24 years respectively. And that's Reporting Scotland. I'm back with the headlines at 8 and the late bulletin at 10:25. From all of us, good evening.